Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The debate on the issue of Mnangagwa trying to amend the constitution so that he could stay in office beyond the stipulated maximum 2 terms rages on. Many people are arguing that we should be involved, ordinary Zimbabweans. This is not a Zanu PF factional issue. And they've come up with arguments that some people have found very difficult to resist. Here is one such individual making his case.
Vamudangani munoona nhau iri panapa taita vanhu vanorasika uye vasingavoni. Paita zvinhu zviviri zvavakusanganiswa asi zvisingafanani uye zvisingafaniri kusangana. Number one, tiri kutaura nyaya yesuccession yeZanu PF. Nyaya yesuccession yeZanu PF has nothing to do with the issue of the majority of Zimbabweans. Inyaya yeZanu PF hatinei nazvo. But nyaya yatiri kutaura isu yatiri kuramba sema-citizens ndeyekuti izvo vamwe voda kubhinya mutemo kuinda beyond 2028. Isu chiziva kuti temu ravo rinopera 2028. Constitution ndo zvainotaura 9112 ndo zvairi. Yozoti zveiyo section 328 5 and 7 dziri pachena kuti munhu unofanira kuti kana achida kuti apinde chii chinofanira kuti chiitwe. Saka handioni kuti tisasanganisa zvinhu zviviri izvozvo, asi ndoda kumbokuyambira mbishana. Pane zvinhu zviviri zvaakuitika ende zvaakuitika izvi. One, pava nokusafunga kuvanhu vanenge vachibva ku-opposite side. Unowana vachiti ivo tinoshandiswa sezvatakamboitwa 2017. Izvo havasi veopposition chete, veopposition nenhingirikiri navamwe veZanu PF vakuzvitaura izvozvo vachiitira kuti vanhu vaite sei, vaitwe discouraged, vachiti tinoshandiswa. Chepiri, pava nevamwe vanoti isusu hatina chatinowana munyaya iyi. Nyaya iyi zoita kuti zvidiscourage vanhu vachiti kana kukaendwa kunomacha kumachi inoitwa iyo ndeye nhingirikiri, ndeye kubenefita Zanu PF, ihondo dzeZanu PF. Ikoko kushayikwa kwefungwa kushoma shoma nokuda kwokuti nhau iri panapa hatisi kutaura nezvesuccession yeZanu PF. Zanu PF ine constitution yayo and we have nothing to do with that constitution. Who succeeds who, that is none of our business. But what we are talking about is the mutilation plan, or the plan of mutilating our constitution. Yokuti vanhu voda kuzviwedzera makore kuti vaende ku-2030 kana 2033.
We can stop it there. It is all very convenient to look at it in that narrow tunnel vision approach. If we are serious about corrupting the constitution, what Zanu PF is proposing to do now, this will not be the first time the regime is corrupted or ignored or violated the constitution. Zimbabwe is a failed state because for the last 45 years, Zanu PF has rigged the elections. Mnangagwa rigged the 2023 elections. What was the reaction of the people? The reaction of the people is what the gentleman is arguing here. Let's participate. And yet we have known that the process in Zimbabwe, the electoral process in Zimbabwe, is so flawed it is sheer madness to keep on participating in it. I've often quoted this quotation from David Coulter's book. The 2013 elections, he says, were so flawed, so illegal, the logical thing to do was to withdraw. Indeed, it is. If you participate in this flawed process, all you'll succeed in doing is give the process legitimacy and perpetuate your own suffering. How many times do you have to do the same thing before the penny finally drops? That this is sheer futile. It's madness. And yet, that's what we've been doing. In the 2023 elections, Chamisa came out and promised the people that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Zanu PF will not rig the elections. And people believed it. The real question here today is whether Zimbabweans have learned from the past, are smart enough now to realize the sheer futility of participating in flawed elections. So flawed, the logical step is to withdraw. And if you don't withdraw, all you are doing is giving Zanu PF legitimacy. Let's go back to the 2023 elections. The 2023 elections, despite Chamisa's assurance that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, we all know that those elections were rigged. SADC, Election Observer Mission, condemned the process as flawed and illegal. SADC would have gone the next step and deny Zanu PF legitimacy, as happened in 2008. Why did they not do it? Because Zimbabweans participated in those elections in their millions. CCC leaders knew the process was flawed. They called people to participate. And CCC leaders, even when they heard from SADC and AU condemning the process, they still went ahead and took up their gravy train seats. That's giving the process legitimacy. Why this has been such a hard pill to swallow for some people beggars belief. Here is Margaret Dongo speaking to that very point.
That should exist. And the corruption is shrunk right to the grassroots. There's now corruption everywhere. Worse off with the leadership. Because they have a look. You asked me a very good question. You were in the Central Committee. You were a member of Parliament. You were this and that. Why are you feeling the pinch? It's because, I didn't believe in corruption. I'm not a selfish person. I'm a selfless person, and I'm like a social worker. Politics is not a business. This is what I want to remind most of our MPs and other people.
Do you think they look at it as a business?
Yes, they look at it as a business, because they look at it as a business seriously. Because the moment they go, business and employment creation, because if they go to parliament, you are employed, you get a car, you get a stable salary, and you are paid until your term is over. Already you are employed. If you are out, you're out of employment.
If you serve 2 terms, you get a pension?
You get a pension. Then already, this is why people kill in politics. They kill to be in parliament. This is why we have violence in this country, because there is no employment. The only employment which is there is in politics. There is no other outside employment. So for them, a very good example is, look at what happened to CCC, the Triple C party. Have a look. When they lost, when they said they were rigged, what I expected from them, I expected all parliamentarians to say, we are not going to go to participate in a rigged system, and we are not going to sit in a rigged parliament, because the elections have been rigged. So all of us were not going to parliament. Imagine what could have happened. We could have gone into new elections. There's no way Zanu PF was going to roll alone.
You think so?
Yes.
Do they care?
Caring or not caring, the public would have forced them, because the majority of the people would want representation in parliament.
The point she's making there is a very valid point. But one can take it even one step back. How many times have we had rigged elections? How many times have we been warned that the elections are flawed? And in the last 2023 elections, people participated on the basis that they believed Chamisa's idiotic lie that he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes. The question really is, have we, the people of Zimbabwe, finally learned the sheer futility of participating in these flawed elections? That is what matters here. Let's be very clear here. Zanu PF, as the government of the day, has the legal obligation to make sure electoral processes are free, fair, and credible. And the results are the genuine democratic wish of the people. We have got SADC. We've done us a great favor and say the 2023 elections were flawed and illegal. We all know that Zanu PF has not implemented not even one token reform since the 2023 elections. They are going to stampede everyone into this referendum to amend the constitution. When they have a flawed process, and to make it worse, referendums, we are not going to have SADC, the AU, or any other outsiders observing the referendum to make sure that they are free, fair, and credible. And so Zanu PF has got a free run to rig this referendum. Why anyone would still participate in a flawed process, so flawed that the logical step is to withdraw, beggars belief. To argue that, oh no, the attempt to amend the constitution is not a Zanu PF issue. it may not be a Zanu PF issue, just as much as the elections were not a Zanu PF issue. But Zanu PF knew the results of the elections beforehand. Zanu PF will win the presidential seat and majority in parliament. And they did. Before we go into this referendum, Zanu PF knows that it will win the referendum and amend the constitution. All Zanu PF is after is that Zimbabweans participate and give the process legitimacy. How anyone can pretend that we have got to go on the street to demonstrate that we don't want the amendment. Zanu PF has got ways of counteracting that. You hold your demonstration today. Tomorrow the party will pass in its supporters from all over the country to hold a similar demonstration. We saw it with elections. The opposition hold their rallies. Zanu PF will pass in their supporters from all over the country to give the impression that the party has got support. This is a contest you are not going to win. At the end of the day, the Zanu PF will already have the result, a yes vote on the amendment before you even vote. All they want you to do is to participate so that they can turn around and say, well, okay, some others were not happy with it, but the majority said yes. We have got to be smart enough, finally, to realize that the ball is actually in our court. We have got to have the discipline to stand back and say, no, we are not participating until we can see that the process is free, fair, and credible. Zanu PF has the legal obligation to make sure that the process is free, fair, and credible, and the result is a true reflection of the democratic wish of the people. This whole idea that we can win rigged elections is foolish. And it is born from the opposition, the MDC in particular's failure to implement the democratic reforms during the GNU of 2008 to 2013. They failed to implement even one token reform. And they realized that they cannot complain that the reforms were not implemented because they were responsible for it and they'd failed to do so. And so they came up with another explanation that they can win rigged elections. And the people were foolish enough to believe it. The only question here is, are Zimbabweans finally smart enough to stop participating in flawed processes, so flawed the logical step is to withdraw? That is the only question that matters here. And I believe the people of Zimbabwe should be smart enough to do so. I believe SADC, the AU, they themselves are the ones who condemned the 2023 elections. will understand why the people of Zimbabwe come out from the word go and say we are not participating in this flawed process. It is not in the power of the individual, you and me, to stop Zanu PF rigging the process. We have seen the regime rig the process again and again and again. The only thing we can do is have the discipline, be smart enough to realize that participating in flawed elections is not going to change anything. We already know that we are not going to change the result. All we are doing is giving Zanu PF legitimacy. For heaven's sake, let's come to our senses and stop this madness. After 50, 20, 45 years of rigged elections, it is sheer madness to keep believing that we can win rigged elections. The challenge is not to win rigged elections. The challenge is to make sure that elections are free, fair, and credible. Zanu PF, as the government of the day, have got the obligation to do so. The opposition's main primary reason why people have been electing the opposition is to make sure that the democratic reforms are implemented. In Zimbabwe, the opposition has been participating in these flawed elections out of greed. Are the people of Zimbabwe smart enough to finally accept that the opposition are no longer fighting in the people's corner, but for their own selfish ends? Mnangagwa, she's absolutely right there. The opposition participated in these flawed elections out of greed. They don't care that by participating, they are perpetuating the dictatorship. They only see it as their chance to get a seat on the gravy train. They're not going to miss it. It's for us, the people, to be smart enough to realize that this madness has got to stop. We should not be so naive and gullible to be conned into believing we can win rigged elections. We have failed for 45 years. Surely the penny must have dropped by now. And we should stop participating in flawed elections. Think about it. Thank you, and have a good day.